hello to everybody. Thank you for the invitation to speak here today. I'll just tell you my vested interests or lack of. I don't work in the mental health services. I don't work for any NGOs. I don't get my salary from mental health or anything. So I am an independent voice for young people with mental health issues. On the one part, over the years, that can be isolating, someone who wants to keep their independent voice, because you are on the outside. But on the other side of it is, I actually get to say what I want to say. And I get to say what I know people who work within organisations and within the service can't say. So basically that's just what my role is. Today and at other conferences, over the years, I haven't gone to too many. I consider myself more of a secret shopper. So nobody knows who I am. So I get to actually hang out, mostly in the smoking area, or in other places. Nobody knows who I am, so they actually speak freely, or they get to talk about, amongst themselves, about their own issues. Now, I don't consider it eavesdropping. Well, maybe it is. So when people actually are giving presentations, it's more that I'm looking at, right, well, if issues that I can share with people are becoming irrelevant, I will drop them. If they are still relevant, I will keep pushing it. I will keep saying that these issues will not be irrelevant until young people tell us that they're irrelevant. So with that, by the way, my background is actually historian. My speciality is the history of psychiatry, and that's about that. I'm also an artist. But apart from that, I come here because I actually went through the mental health services as a young person, as a young person and an adult. So when you say that we were given 18 minutes to talk to people, give a presentation, it made it sound as if, if you were still speaking after 18 minutes, there was a bunch of ninjas going to run in and drag you off the stage. I can actually say it in 10 seconds, deliver my message in 10 seconds, and it's as simple as the day the adult world stops expecting someone to be the same, to act the same, or to want the same out of their life is the day we future-proof mental health. So, thank you. So the longer version of it is, I know that nobody here knows me, so you will want to have some of my background. And just with saying that not everybody is the same, I won't be walking around. I have a likelihood that I will trip myself, and I also sometimes like to read. So that's me being me, and I need to drink water. Anyone on medication will know how that feels. So some of my background is, maybe stand back when I do it. As a teenager, I had a promising future. I had dreams and ambitions. I had a peer network and connection to society. Within 6 months of a breakdown, that was all gone. Nothing in my life for the following 8 years said that I was normal, that I belonged, or that I was accepted. I became the other. My self-identity and confidence suffered a catastrophic blow. Rejection from society and isolation became my normal. And the funny thing about it is, as you get older, it becomes convenient to explain your behaviour as weird. It's almost as if you're trying to embrace your weirdness. And one of my professors, a good friend of mine, he said, "Stop calling yourself weird. Lisa, you're the most idiosyncratic mind I've ever met." So I'll take that. And I said, basically weird, is that what you're saying? By 24 years old, I was ready to either give up on life or break away from the constraints of illness. That year, I shared a fledgling ambition to obtain a PhD with another adult. The reaction was less than supportive. The argument from this individual was that I was incapable of such an undertaking. It was obvious that mental illness was being used as a measure of my intelligence, skills, and abilities. My reaction was less than agreeable. I had had enough dismissive attitudes and fake benevolence from strangers to last a lifetime. With a healthy dose of stubbornness, I say a healthy dose, it's quite a lot, it was easy to decide what to do from that point onwards. I had the intelligence to achieve my goal, the determination to reach the finish line, and the personality and temperament to help my progress along the way. Admittedly, my educational goal was an exercise to gather evidence and prove a point, not a noble awakening. I didn't embark on a recovery journey. I had a mission. I started with the junior certificate in Ireland. You take that at 15 years old, and I had become ill that year, so by 24 I didn't even have a junior cert. So I started with the junior certificate, followed it with the leaving certificate. I then progressed to university and obtained a bachelor's degree, master's and doctorate. I chose not to skip any level of progression in the Irish education system because I wanted to make sure that the evidence for change could not be undermined. I believed, and still believe, that to build a better future for younger generations, people with lived experience should be willing to identify obstacles by facing them head on. I'd like to know now, how many students with schizophrenia currently attend a full-time third-level course in Ireland? How many progress to postgraduate studies? How many disappear from the records in the first year and are then cruelly labelled a dropout? If they don't exist in high double figures in the student population in 2017, then it is time for families, carers, advocates and health professionals to start asking why. I was sitting in the Q&A earlier this morning, and it was Ross, who I haven't actually spoken to, but I know his name was Ross. He mentioned something about the worries of the younger generations with mental health problems and their CV, or explaining what happens when they go for a job and they're missing a year, 2 years, 3 years. I initially planned to take this section out of my presentation because I thought it's irrelevant. Why did I think it was irrelevant? Because other adults were telling me it was irrelevant. But in my heart, I knew it wasn't. So I put it back in. In the first year of university, I tried to apply for a small student grant. They required an employment history document, in Ireland it's called a P45, to process applications, which I couldn't provide due to illness and all the time in hospital. The person dismissed the explanation, said so what, and closed the door in my face. Now, I'm not the type of person to fall under that. I actually thought maybe she's having a bad day at work. So I said, I'll take what I can from the experience. So what became the key to identifying and overcoming obstacles in the education system. It basically became a case. I would be the critic, I would be the stigma, and I would get ready with the answers. So what if I had an illness? So what if I had spent years in a hospital and lost opportunities as a result? So what if I wanted to attend university? I realised that I had to find the answers to so what, as well as to the question why. Why did I want to go through the education system? That's what I did in the years ahead. I found the answers. I found them in the laws of this country, the policies and procedures of educational institutions and government departments. My interest now, in my own private time, I don't call it research, it's more sitting with my dog on the couch going, what's going on here, Shaw? My interest now is discovering the meaning of advocacy in youth mental health and mental health. I struggle to call advocacy a role or position. I think due to an arbitrary and unregulated management system, it is better described as a phenomenon. Something valuable in transition or in a state of becoming. We haven't figured out how to fit the voice of lived experiences into conferences or research. Maybe we can change if we demand higher standards from advocates now. I have expectations of other advocates claiming lived experience or expert status. It should be acceptable to question the extent of knowledge and motivation of advocates in youth mental health before anointing them as heroes with a just cause. When I was young, my family were my advocates. I trusted them, my parents and my 3 siblings. They were the people who could speak for me when I couldn't speak. Anyone outside of that, I gave a different description to. Strangers with an agenda. Now, it's not that cynical. You can look at it as cynical or not, but it actually can be a more realistic description. You can identify the agenda, take the time to look at it. You might actually support it and agree with it. That's okay, run with it. You can believe that advocate. But sometimes villains have an agenda, heroes have a just cause. And there was a couple of things I wanted to point out that I constantly hear about resilience, as if it's something new, or that young people are actually incapable of it. I think young people, you're giving yourselves a hard time. I don't think you're weak. I think you are resilient no matter what people are telling you to be, telling you that you are. You don't need to be taught it. You certainly don't need to. You certainly don't need to be taught it by people who are teaching it to you as if you're being rejected for a job application. And that's what sometimes it sounds like. This isn't, life and society is not a job application. Being rejected by society is not being rejected for a job application. I have a certain behaviour or gesture that I do, and when you get a rejection for a job application or some course or something like that, and it's literally throw it over your shoulder. But the other type of rejection that I experienced as a young person was very different, more damaging, and left a lot more scars. So that's why I stand here. I basically just want to say to young people, stop beating yourselves up. And the challenges you're facing are not so different to challenges that were faced by previous generations. Previous generations had their own challenges. In the 1940s, here's the history, when the war happened, children were put on trains, very young children were put on trains in England, shipped out to the countryside to live with strangers until the war was over. That had an effect on them. My father was orphaned in the 1940s. He was separated from his other 5 siblings and placed in a religious institution. Now, anyone Irish here knows what that's like, but he has showed an extraordinary resilience and self-determination. And that was before the vocabulary even entered the lexicon of youth mental health or mental health. The difference now, I see, is that you are having generational challenges that we didn't face. And I'm even saying that I'm 40 years old, but we didn't, technology hadn't come until I really was already in the system, right? So it wasn't actually a problem. So the point about it is that your challenges are generational. They happened before. The difference is you're being given a voice and you have a way to share it and to utter those challenges. But don't worry, my GP said to my mother years ago that it was extraordinary. He felt that any teenager made it through, any of us. So his advice was, she'll be grand, you know. Typical, she'll be grand. And I absolutely was, although my parents went through and my family went through an awful lot. 8 years we went through. And it ended up that I look back now and I do hear advocates say, and trying to take all the credit for the recovery or for where they stand today, and I'm not that person. There were times when I couldn't walk into a room without holding my father's hand, and I was 18, 19 years old. So every member of my family held me up. There was my psychiatrist, I had them when I had 16 to 18, and then I did that transition. Goodbye. My psychiatrist retired this year. 22 years she was my psychiatrist. I hope now she's on a beach in Hawaii. I really do. She's done her duty for everybody in the area. So I'm actually going to leave it there, if that's all right. I've said enough. Thank you.